not just in the education sector, but just overall all around. And this is one way we can do that, by preserving what we're all worried about, right? We're going to lose our ability for critical thinking, and our ability to be unique in society and all that stuff, even though don't know that we have that much control of it. But it's really moving towards that progress with humans at the center of it all, truly, to really preserve any of these human elements. Yeah.
I actually want to add to this. I think a lot of us here, we teach first generation college students who went to schools where they were told what to write, when to write, how many words, spacing. I mean, in a way, they were told what to think. So when you actually ask them, what do you think? I don't know, what should I think? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that whole idea of how do we teach students to read critically, that's a struggle that we have to come up with creative tools. And this is where I'm going to do a plug-in for PlayLab. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what PlayLab is, it's a chatbot that you build. Your corazón, your heart builds it. You build that, as we call it, vibe coding, or that narrative, how you want it to perform, how you want it to help. And so for me, for example, I think of myself when it's that story I gave you about Salomón Huerta. I was looking at his art, okay? He actually got a MacArthur Genius Award, and I didn't get it. It's when he asked me, what do you think? I was like, I don't know. Okay. But when he explained me to me the process, I was able to, come up with an answer. So with PlayLab, I built the mechanism to enable students to ask it to talk to the student according to their passions, according to their hobbies, according to what they're into. For example, if a student is a basketball player, they can talk to our chatbot that's connected to our textbook and say, look, I play basketball. Professor's asking me about intersectionality. I don't really get it. And guess what it'll do? It'll talk to the student. It'll actually be like, órale, don't worry. I know it's hard. I hear the voice in my head. I wish it could have the little avatar, because it'd be like, don't worry. That's a fancy word, isn't it? And so I added those vernacular words, some Gen Z, lingo, to be what you're saying is quite cap, but I don't also want to be ingenuous. I do want to say I don't want to be ingenuous. I've been struggling with that. But my point is that this is where, as practitioners, we can use a tool to help the students be able to get to that point where they can just say, is it good? Right. And if it's not, why? Why do you feel this way? And so that is still a challenge for a lot of our students. That just critical thinking is still something that they struggle with. I've said this story before. My sister was a straight A student in high school, but when she went into college, she started failing. Because my sister was she would memorize. Mm-hmm. She was one of those that would spend hours memorizing and would get straight A's. When she went to college, she couldn't answer the question, what do you think? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I think? So just that idea of just the critical thinking, like you said, is still something, we struggle with.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because one thing that I'm doing with my students now is because there is AI, and it's about them being able to assess the output that AI is giving them and all that. But what kind of a thinker are you? Are you waiting to be told what to think? Are you a blank page that's waiting to have an answer input? Do you have an answer and trying to see what other people say so you can decide what you think about your answer? Kind of that back and forth, you're waiting for that. And so I'm trying to cultivate, okay, let's be aware of our thinking style, right? Because that's going to matter when you're looking at AI. When I enter stuff in AI, I tend to have an answer already in my head, right? And if it's contrary to my answer, like, okay, but why? And if it makes a really good point, I'm willing to change my response, and I think that is important in critical thinking, is like, when you find a flaw in your own perfect answer, being willing to admit that. And, that's okay to like, oh yeah, okay, that makes more sense. And so for me, I think it's really curiosity too. You have to have curiosity. You have to crave to want to know, right? And so one way that I would say as an educator is currently I'm trying to help my students, and I don't know, I feel a little like, arrogant to be like, I'm helping them, understand their thinking process, right? Because maybe they do on some level, and I don't want to dismiss that. But being aware of it too, just like, okay, well, what kind of a thinker are you, right? Before you start jumping into AI. Because I fall into that trap with AI. Sometimes I love AI because it gives me answers really quick, right? Like right away. And sometimes I don't even trust myself doing that because I'm like, but now I don't know what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like now I don't know if that was my thought process. And I like to know my thought process. I like to know if it's coming from what I'm thinking of,
Did you find the word? What was it?
I'm sorry, and you were looking for...
The word that the psychological term?
Oh, it might have been looking at a different article. Were you thinking about the one where the student, or the child who actually committed suicide?
No.
Okay, that's a different one.
No. Oh, darn.
Could I say
But
something?
that was what you were saying. When do you know?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I mean, there's an insidious dimension here, though. I want to be slightly contrarian. Just like, I worry about. So when expert practitioners use these systems, like us, we have years of training without these technologies that we can use as our basis. And I worry, for your students, for instance, like there is something, I believe, about that cognitive friction of encountering something that is difficult and pushing into it and past it that's really important for building your own self-confidence. And so I worry sometimes that, like, when do the training wheels come off? That's, I think, the thing we're still not sure about. And I worry in the same way that, we didn't know really that social media would have all of these consequences. So I feel like we're experimenting with our kids sometimes. I mean, I'm not saying we sort of have no choice, but as humanists, we're very good at thinking in 4 different ways simultaneously, and I think we have to keep that Jiminy Cricket, right?
Yeah.
In mind.
With that in mind, I want to ask the last question, which is, in what ways can humanities provide a guiding lens to how AI is integrated into education and society?
I think you had a brilliant idea on the critical SDS.
Okay.
I'm unaware of it, so I would love for you to take lead on this.
Okay, so I made this one comment about how I'd make a plug for a whole discipline, which is Science and Technology Studies, STS, and Critical STS, which has really critiqued the scientific development in the 19th and 20th century. And it really helped to help us see and historicize the ways in which this was a sociological phenomenon. So I think that there are frameworks that come from there. I'll just mention a couple books and I'll say something. So, one that people probably know is Design Justice by Costanza Chalk. But there's also this great book by Arturo Escobar, Designs for the Pluriverse. And then the other thing that I have some more, like Race After Technology, Rahab Benjamin's classic book, and Automating Inequality. But I also have become more aware of other dimensions. My colleague Megan Moody at Santa Cruz works in disability studies, and with her I've been reading a lot of work in critical disability studies, and she's made the point to me that, with these, future AI individuals, we all have a kind of disability with respect to it. And so disability studies, which emphasizes the way in which people as individuals navigate a world that isn't designed for them, is a really effective lens for thinking about the future. So there's a book that she recommended by Sarah Hendren called What Can a Body Do? How We Meet the Built World, that has been very helpful for me in thinking about things. And I should just say, as humanists, one thing that we're really good at is thinking about corner cases, thinking about individual instances, thinking about the long tail, right? And that is not something that people in the AI industry really care about, but we should care about because we care about people. And all of these scholars really reckon with the way that technology as a discipline hasn't thought about its impacts on individual people. And that's something that we need to bring again and again to our students. And it's something that these books and their frameworks, but also narrative, is so powerful for. There's a reason why we crave narrative, right? Because it makes sense to us in a way.
Yeah. So because I want to, this is about humanities, just one fun last question. What brings you joy, Rachel?
That's a simple one. It's just my family and my dogs.
Yay,
Spending
family and
time with
dogs.
them.
What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? I don't know. I really like making art.
Okay. Oh, right.
We'll let your family know they weren't on the top.
They already know.
I have a new joy, and it was introduced to me from Michelle. Like, I want to look for daily awe moments. So I'm like taking my camera and taking pictures of like, oh, look at this flower. Wow. So that's my new joy. I'm going to find daily awe. So I want to thank everyone. If you see us around, you want to have a conversation. I think lunch is next. All right. I want to keep you away from that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Woo.
Thank you, Fabiola. That was so fun.